Hello, everybody, and happy holidays. This is a very special holiday season, end of the year kind of podcast. We're doing it with a good friend of ours. His name is Rob Johnson, and he is the founder of Wayne Media and the gentleman who is leading the charge for our podcast, as well as helping a whole bunch of other clients all over the country, particularly in even the well-known imaging channel. So welcome, Rob Johnson, to our next week's live podcast.
I appreciate that, Mike. How are you doing, sir?
Well, you know what? I'm doing great. I'm looking forward to a wonderful holiday season. I hope you are too.
I am. It's kind of the one time of year where I get to slow down a little bit, so it's nice.
Yeah, I hope that's true. I don't know about you, but lately it seems like slowing down is not really slowing down yet. So I think we got a better plan.
Yeah, I'll settle for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day being slow, and because right now this December has been the busiest I've ever had,
Which is fantastic.
It's good problems to have. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I wanted for the audience, allow me just a couple of minutes. When we had the idea of pulling together next week's live podcast, frankly, I'd never really done one or produced one. So Rob and his team actually produce it, and I very quickly learned that you actually have to know what you're doing when you get on these podcasts. And it took a couple of episodes and a few guinea pigs, to get through some level of polish. But for everyone out there, I have to tell you that Wayne Media and Rob and his team, they made our group look very sharp and very polished and very quick in very short order. So Rob, on a personal note, you made what I thought was easy, but actually was very, very difficult. You made it easier. So thank you from our team.
I appreciate that, and you guys do a great job, Mike. And you got to give yourself some credit on that as well. You're a fantastic host, so you're a natural with this.
Well, thanks. I try to keep it conversational and fun. And to that point, we're looking forward to the ECS, the Executive Connection Summit we call 23, which is coming up next month. And I know you're going to be doing an awful lot of work on site. And I'm kind of curious, how are you feeling about coming on site all the way to beautiful Scottsdale, Arizona? You got a big job ahead of you. How are you feeling about what you're going to be doing?
I'm excited. I love what I do, and this is my first time in Arizona, so that'll be a fun experience. Obviously, it's gonna be our first time meeting in person, so I'm looking forward to that and all the fantastic people on your team. But film and video and just kind of capturing stories and podcasting and media, that's what I get up and love doing every single day. So it's just exciting. Like, there's no nerves or stress. It's just like it's routine at this point. And what's exciting and gets me pumped up is doing different things. And this is something very different in a different location. So I know Grant and I are heading out there, and we're both very excited about this.
Well, we're looking forward to it. And for people listening in, we have a wonderful audience. We've got great dealers and really a whole bunch of people around the world. I'm kind of curious how you're partnered with, if I can say it that way, UTech and Kevin Van Cannell and Les and the team over at UTech. How did you guys come together and create this idea of doing this kind of work for the industry?
Well, we started working with Kevin and UTech a few years into after I had created the company, and what I had initially wanted was, I have an MBA in organizational development, and as I was going through that process, I really wanted to focus on creating an agency, a marketing company that isn't like every other marketing company, because I'm not a big fan of marketing companies. I've worked for several corporate organizations and seen what agencies offer, and I just haven't been a big fan of it. And I've been in the podcasting space since like 2013. So I thought it'd be a really good marriage to take the commercial success of podcasting and marry it to a creative agency. So now we have, completely in-house staff where we do commercial videography, photography, social media, all that jazz. Pretty much anything that you can think of in the digital marketing realm, we do in-house. So there's no contractors, which makes the customer experience super nice. So when I opened the Brighton location, Kevin and I happened to be serving on the chamber board together, and I got introduced to him, and then we started doing work for UTech. And then we started doing their podcast and marketing and all of that. And then Kevin introduced us. So through my relationship with Kevin and being a service provider for his business, you and I met, and that was almost a year ago, if not more, and it's been fantastic.
So when are you working with other dealers as well around the country, as in addition to UTech?
Yeah, so we just started working with two other ones, one in Kentucky and then one in Southern Michigan, and those are newer relationships that are starting. But one of my benefits I think that I bring to the table is before I started and went off on my own, I worked for a finance company in their IT department doing data center management, tape management, media, all that jazz. So I have a pretty good background in IT services and a good working knowledge of how that particular space works from a purchasing perspective. So then when I go and look at it from the advertising or creative model, I kind of know what purchasers are looking at and what decision makers want to see. So I can put all of that together in a really nice, clean package for people. And now that we've grown so much, now my team is the one that's executing that mission, and they do a fabulous job at accomplishing that.
So when you're working in, at least in our industry, and maybe the question fits for other industries that you're working with, it seems to me that our industry has become more aggressive, if you will, with video or podcast or some version. What do you find to be the challenges for the dealer community or our industry to adapt to this new kind of program or platform?
Yeah. In my best estimation, Mike, I think there's a lot of fear in this particular industry of being more transparent and kind of going behind the scenes because it's not something that has typically been done. It's a very uncomfortable shift for people to kind of invite people back into the kitchen, so to speak. But what's interesting about where we're heading with marketing and technology and just consumer experiences, that's what people want to see. They want to know the DNA and the culture of the people behind the name of the organization. So that's something that we've been champions of pretty much since we opened our doors, which is a 100% transparent model. Even on all of our websites, we encourage pricing, which helps qualify people, which makes sales go faster. So there's a lot of things that might seem uncomfortable because they're pretty significant shifts in what people have done before. But once they're implemented and executed well, they work. And podcasting is just another platform to help push that along because it gives, as you know, credibility, transparency, the ability to network with other people, and the ability to talk about your business long form without feeling like you got to stuff it into an elevator pitch.
Yeah, from personal experience, I know when I started with you and Grant, I really I never did a podcast. So other than maybe I was on one and might have been other people on it, so there wasn't a lot of pressure. But
Yeah.
One thing that I noticed as I've hopefully learned and developed some skills in this area, you run into people who are not, they're not personal, they're not personable on video sometimes in front of the camera. It's almost like the camera becomes a tool to make people nervous or scared, right? So one of the tricks not tricks, but one of the things I've learned is that the more open and vulnerable the podcaster is, the more open and honest and vulnerable the guest is. Is that pretty normal?
Yeah, it's absolutely the case. And what I tell people all the time, whether I'm doing sales coaching or business consulting, whatever it is, it's you have to have a personal relationship with whoever's sitting across from you. So if you come in and you're super stiff and you don't want to have a conversation and it's really gruff and it's not going to be a good conversation because everyone's guard is perpetually up. There's no possibility for any connection to happen. And then what happens is listeners will tune into that and you got to imagine that the listeners are at the table with you. So you have to create an environment that they want to participate in, even though they can't speak directly to the show. And that's what most podcasters miss, is they want to keep it super formal, and that's doing nothing but pushing listeners away from wanting to be a part of that show.
So you're coming to ECS, and frankly, I agree with you. I think people get nervous, in front of that camera, and I still get nervous, even though I've done 15, 16 of these things now. But when you come to ECS, and obviously we're going to be introducing you to folks, or you're going to be introducing yourself, what message is it that you want to be able to have us convey, during the summit, as far as your growth and new opportunities? Are you aggressively seeking dealers as new clients?
I'm actually not. I'm not aggressively. What I'm aggressively seeking is people that want to take their marketing department seriously. I'm aggressively seeking people that want to actually execute the right way. They want to be collaborative. They want to be communicative. They want to be in that process. Because when I go and meet with a potential client, I'm interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing me. Because one of the reasons that we've grown so fast is we have a fantastic clientele, and they work well with my team, and my team enjoys working with them. Because if I hire or assign a bunch of clients that my team doesn't like, or they're rude, or they're mean, my staff's not going to want to stick around. And we are an employee first company, meaning I treat my employees exceptionally well. I look out for their needs first. And by doing that, they'll look out for my clients' needs first. So when I look for new business, I look for people that want to take this seriously and they want to do something meaningful. And if they're down for that, then I'm down to talk.
Man, that is a great answer. I never heard anybody flip that question around and say, no, I'm not looking for new dealers. I'm looking for new partners. I mean, that's pretty.
And that's because if you're, and like, this, like you've had a ton of success. You have a phenomenal career in this marketplace. If you're out there chasing every dollar down just because someone's going to throw money at you, that's going to be a short-lived business. And I can't operate that way. And I've had people come to me and they've seen the work that I've done and they said, hey, Rob, pretend you have a blank check. You tell me how much I need to spend to get you to work with me or to get you to do this for me. That's the language they use. There's not enough money in the world for you to get me to do this for you. We need to do it together or it's not going to work. Because if you want me to do 100% of the work, why don't I just go start that business and take 100% of the profit?
Welcome to 2023. I think you just laid out the attitude and agenda and the vibe, that we want to promote as a culture for the event and frankly to kick off the entire new year. I couldn't agree with you more. I love hearing it, especially from people like you who are younger, appreciate the value of a partnership, appreciate the importance of, hey, I always had a saying growing up: if you put greed ahead of need, you're doomed.
I love that.
If you're doomed. So focus on the things that ultimately will pay. They'll fund. Yeah. But focus on the people you're doing business with. I love that, Rob. So you're going to be coming out, and we're going to help you find some new clients. I hope that's the case, and they're going to be happy clients. We'll make sure they fit the profile. Yeah. But the one thing that I'm very impressed with. So we started this, like you said, about a year ago. You guided us, and then you brought Grant in, and Grant is an absolute reflection of what you just said. Sometimes the president will say something, and then the people behind him don't live up to that culture, right? Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. You're living and breathing it, and you're doing what you're living it. And Grant certainly does that. And anybody out there who wants to work with Rob and Grant, I'll tell you what, they got my full reference.
That means a lot.
So let's talk a little bit personally about you. And we have a few minutes left here to make sure that we cover the important bases. So business is coming up. The summit's coming up. As a younger executive in the business, what do you anticipate in 2023?
Yeah. Man, that's a big question. I would say, as a 30,000 foot view, my anticipation is that a lot of the businesses that pretended their way through COVID aren't going to make it through the year. And what I mean by that is the ones that just thought it was acceptable to coast and to abuse clients and to mistreat people. 2023 is going to be a very hard year for those people, and rightfully so. And that makes me happy to see the market correct itself, because I want businesses that are open and operating at the sole benefit and service of their customers. And if they're not willing to do that, then I don't believe they have a place in this market. So that's what I think is going to be the main punchline of 2023. And for us, we are very hyper focused on how we can make the internal aspect of our organization better. And that's including, bringing on new team members. Like right now, we have 3 positions that we're opening and hiring. And for us, like my sole mission for Wayne Media this year is to take the company much more national. So right now we have very local, regional base. I want to start moving out more, because I think our models have been tested that we can take in the volume and we can execute really well. We have a ton of project management infrastructure that we've built into the company. That way we can measure bandwidth and capacity loads and employee caps. And that's been a really big focus of mine in 2022, is figuring out how much work we can take and what scaling looks like. Now I want to go and execute against that.
So, do you anticipate a reasonable economic market, the work from home situation? How do you feel about those two things?
So, in terms of the economic market, I was talking to my leadership team about this week actually. My company has never had a favorable economy since we've opened. I went into business for myself in 2019, and I was part-time because I still had a full-time job. I hadn't made the full jump yet. 2020, December of 2019 is when I left my full-time job. 2020, we all know what happened in March. And then we've been feeling that economic pressure of, varying recessions and depressions since then. So, and we've, year 1, we tripled. Year 2, we doubled. This year we're up 40%. So we're continuing to grow in spite of the economic conditions. So for us, I think as long as we treat people well and do an exceptional job and we take ownership of everything, which is my core philosophy as a company, I think we're going to keep growing. In terms of the work at home thing, I'm not a big fan of remote work unless it's necessary. Like if I have team members that aren't in Brighton, remote's fine. But like if we are all able to get together, I find in-office work far more productive. And that's just for me. I can't speak for everyone else. Everyone's got their own different routines. But I think we're going to see a resurgence of people returning to the office. It's more collaborative. It's more productive. And I think overall it's better for the organizations.
Again, that's interesting coming from a young leader in business. It's such a wild card, for me. I mean, I find people my age, who I would have thought are demanding, work from the office. No, you got to come back. But it's not age based. No. There's something else going on out there. But as a young person, you believe it's more productive.
Well, I would ask you this, Mike. So why isn't the summit that we're going to in January, why isn't that remote? Why aren't we all just Zooming into a meeting?
Boom. Good question.
And that's it. Relationships work better when they're in person, and that's an undeniable fact. So if you take that and extrapolate it to the business sense, why wouldn't we want to use that inside of our organizations? It doesn't mean remote doesn't have a place. We're doing a remote podcast right now, and it's awesome. But if you and I were in Michigan, there's no way in hell you and I would be sitting on 2 separate sides of computer screens. We'd be together in my studio right now hanging out, And that's the overall thing. When the conditions merit it, remote is great. But if you can be in person, it's exponentially better, and there's no debate over it, in my opinion.
Well, that's a great analogy. I mean, Rob, really. So when we did the Executive Connection Summit last January this year, we were a little not a little, we were very nervous because we didn't know if people were going to come.
Right.
And it was like a jailbreak. It was like a family reunion, you know?
Yeah, I
And
imagine
so,
so.
I mean, it truly was. I mean, people even said that, thank you for pulling it together. We're happy to be in front of each other. And then this year or next year, we raised our expectations. How many people, the room block, and we're doing just fine. I mean, it's going to be an epic event.
Oh yeah.
But the other thing I noticed though too, and this is a byproduct of some hard work, and I think the podcast actually helped us do this because we were able to focus in on things that I felt were important. Getting young leaders in front of, the community, getting females in front of with a bigger audience, the community, a better balance of innovation companies with Intel and Microsoft and smaller companies. So I think the summit, actually, you're probably right, is an accurate reflection of people's desire to learn better face to face and make relationships. So that's good input.
You're more engaged, Even sitting here right now, I got 48 notifications flying all about my computer screen, but when we're sitting together in person, all of that's gone.
So let's again talk. Where are you from originally? Are you from Michigan?
Yeah, so I was born in Flint, Michigan, and then I was there for about until I was like 6. We moved up to northern Michigan, and then I stayed there until I graduated high school, and then I moved back down south and did my undergrad and MBA, all in Michigan.
So as you were going through your early life and high school and ultimately college, who do you think? Well, not think. Who were your mentors?
That's a really good question. I mean, I had a bit of trouble when I was 18 to 22. I got into trouble with the police. I got into some trouble, and it wasn't anything terribly serious, but like it was enough for me to like, okay, I probably should start taking this a little more seriously. And like the first college I went to, I got kicked out of for academic probation. I had like a 0.8 GPA, and I wasn't allowed to come back for the following semester because I just didn't show up to class. I didn't care.
Wow.
So I didn't graduate with my undergrad until I was 24, 25. So there was a lot of setbacks that I had, and I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do. I started working in the ER when I was 16. I worked in the medical field till I was 22. And then I switched over to business around that time. And then I was like, okay, I really enjoy this. And it was just a really natural fit. So then I did the undergrad. And I think I finished with like a 2.9 or a 3.1. That really bad semester at that first college set me back quite a bit. And then when I did my MBA, I finished with like a 3.9. So I took that very seriously because I wanted to learn and throw as much as I could into that. So as far as mentors, like my wife, I met her when I was 19, and she was the one that really helped me turn my life around because she was a very influential figure because I never really met someone with as straight of a moral compass as her. And she really took the time to care about me and invest in me. And that was huge. And her family did as well. And it was a really cool process. And looking back, I'm 32 now. So looking back, over these last 13 years, it's really cool to see kind of where I was and then where I am now. And even like the design of our studio and the aesthetics of everything, she built and designed all of this because she's really good design eye, and she's been fundamental in the growth of this business and in the growth of me throughout my life. So a lot of credit for where I'm at right now goes to her.
Well, you couldn't have said it any better, and kudos to her. What is her name?
Beth.
What? Okay, well, Beth, great job. Really well done. This kid turned out pretty good. So as I've gone through, I've been in this business for 47 years, and if you can imagine, some people will probably say, "Get him out," But
No.
to me, it energizes me. It keeps me alive and vibrant, and you want to make a contribution, pay it forward, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, but when you think about it, I mean, I've lived through, the Kennedy assassination, through everything up until today, and it's a kaleidoscope of knowledge that you can't help but consume. So when you look forward, so that's 4 decades. So when you look forward in your world, which is obviously high tech, and you see things like AI, and you see things like, I forget the ocular,
VR, virtual reality.
yeah. So how fast do you see these changes coming into the new world?
Yeah. I'll give you some hot takes. I hate virtual reality. I think it's a garbage system and I would never invest a penny into it. And the reason being is because everyone, especially Mark Zuckerberg right now, who I have a ton of respect for, huge influence in my life. Love reading his early work at Facebook. I think he made a massive mistake when he flipped Facebook to Meta and doubled down on VR, and his stock price is reflecting that right now. So is his staff and the exodus that's happening there. But I think for me, virtual reality is one of these markets where, almost 2/3 of the population have problems with motion sickness. So if we all think we're going to be living in some virtual reality world, think again, that's not going to happen. AI is really interesting, but we're never fully going to ever replace the human experience. And COVID was a really good recentering for us on that, I believe, because everyone was like, we just need more remote and digital relationships. And COVID happened, and what happened? Well, all of a sudden, people want to start hanging out again, and Zoom isn't enough all of a sudden. So I don't think AI is ever going to replace human interactions. I think what it's going to do is it's going to expedite the areas that we don't care about. Data processing, coding, areas that can be done from an AI perspective. That way we can focus more on the human relationships and elements.
Yeah, interesting perspective. I see the medical field taking on like you said, there are a lot of reasons to use AI in those kinds of environments, right?
Even in what we're doing right now, like on this podcast, they have AI software like on this Riverside platform that we're using that detects who's talking and it cuts the video accordingly, which speeds up the amount of time my engineers need to dedicate towards editing podcasts because the cuts are already made, so long as the AI is correct. And that enables them to spend more time on the relationships with our clients, which is a really good use case for AI.
Absolutely. Perfect example. So as we're winding down here, are you a music fan?
I am. I'm a huge, my dad was a musician when I was younger, so he did country music, did quite a bit of that, so I was exposed to all the classics as a kid. So your favorite genre would be country music? No, my favorite genre is alternative music. Kind of, my favorite artist is a fellow called Andrew McMahon. Just a phenomenal songwriter. He's one of my favorites. But anything in the kind of alt rock, I'm a big country fan still. I love rap music. Huge fan of that genre as well. So, those are probably my top 3 genres.
So here's a tough question for you. I love all those. I can't say that I love rap. I don't quite understand it all, but
once we hang out in January, I'll expose you to some good stuff, Mike, and you'll be a fan after we're done hanging. So.
Although I have to admit, I got turned on to Drake, and so I don't even know what that qualifies at, but I like him.
That's rap. So.
Yeah. So I always ask people, and obviously I'm an Italian kid from Chicago. Grew up in the city, and my father was a big band singer, so I heard them all, right?
Oh, yeah.
Victor Moe and Sinatra. Sinatra happens to be my favorite. So do you have a favorite Sinatra song?
I do. My favorite Sinatra song is probably I've Got You Under My Skin. That's kind of early 50s. It's kind of the resurgence of Sinatra. I think that was right after he signed with Capitol Records. So that to me is a great song. And what turned me onto that song, actually enough, was I really liked the show MASH. That was the show my dad always watched when I was a kid. So I also fell in love with it. And in one of the earlier seasons, that was the first time I had heard it, is one of the doctors is singing it as he's doing a surgery, which is ironic. And I was like, what is that? And then I, researched it and I was like, oh, this song is dope. So that was the one that's always stuck out to me.
Well, I'll tell you what, that's a great song. I'm impressed you even know Capitol Records era. I mean, that was
Oh, yeah.
that was an era for him.
Yeah. One of my favorite artists is Buddy Holly. Short-lived as his career was, probably like I play music as well. So one of the most influential guitar players and songwriters on me when I was starting to learn to play music. So
Wow, for a young guy, you got the names down, man. Buddy Holly, awesome. Were you an Elvis fan? Are you an Elvis fan?
I'm not as big of an Elvis fan. A lot of respect for that body of work. What I really like about Elvis is he did the $1 Million Quartet with Johnny Cash. Huge Johnny Cash guy. And when they did, I think it was Sam Phillips. I'm drawing a blank on his label, but Sam Phillips had Elvis. Sun, yes, Sun Records. Yeah. So in the Sun recording studio, there was Elvis, Johnny Cash, I think Jerry Lee Lewis. So they had, they formed this $1 Million Quartet, and that's some of my favorite Elvis stuff there.
Yeah, well, again, you good taste.
It's important to know the classics, and I try to do my best to teach my kids them as well. That's phenomenal artists.
Well, we're turning the corner here. I love your music choices. Your input today was awesome. I know for everyone in the audience, you get to see meet Rob and Grant at ECS. Make sure you look them up. Fabulous people. Rob, you're a gentleman, and I appreciate the professional courtesy, and I can't speak enough for Grant. So you have a wonderful, wonderful Christmas, a happy holiday season, and I'll see you on the other side.
You as well, my friend. I appreciate the time. Always good to talk to you.
Same here. Thanks, Rob. Appreciate it.